Hello everyone, my name is Cindy Abinir, your student teacher for today's lesson. We all know that in our home we have pet dog or maybe pet cat. When we was a child, some of us thinks that can dog and cat can be bred or be together. In short, half dog, half cat. We need to understand that dog and cat are different species. So, what is species? Same species can interbreed, can reproduce offspring, but if you know, different species can interbreed but they cannot make a population. For Ernest Mayr, species are groups of interbreeding natural population that are reproductively isolated. So why there are so many species? The answer to that question is because of reproductive isolating mechanism. What is reproductive isolating mechanism? Reproductive isolation is defined as the inability of a species to breed successfully with related species due to geographical, behavioral, psychological, or genetic barriers or differences. So now, let's talk about prezygotic isolation. Prezygotic isolation have a barriers that prevent members of different species from mating to produce a zygote or a single cell embryo. And it have five parts. First, we have geographical, second temporal, third behavioral, fourth mechanical, and for the last one is gametic isolation. For today's lesson, I will only discuss the three types of prezygotic isolation, which are geographical isolation, behavioral isolation, and for the last one is temporal isolation. First, let's talk about geographic isolation or ecologic or habitat isolation. Geographical isolation refers to the separation of member of population by a physical barrier such as mountain or body of water, which disrupt the gene flow between them and begins the process of speciation. In short, it's a physical barrier that separates the two species to interbreed and create cycles. And here's are the two examples of geographical isolation in animals. First, we have the mountain bluebirds lives at high elevation while the eastern bluebirds prefers lower elevation and does not encounter the mountain species. So this is part of geographical isolation. Second, we have the kaibab squirrel also known as Sarus alberti kaibabensis, and Albert squirrel, also known as Cyrus alberti woodhouse. This squirrel, the kaibab squirrel, is subspecies of the Albert squirrel that form when a small population become isolated on the north rim of Grand Canyon. So, the geographical happen between the Grand Canyon. So next is temporal or seasonal isolation. What is temporal isolation? Temporal isolation difference in the timing of critical reproductive events prevent member of closely related species which could otherwise breed with one another from mating and producing hybrid offspring. In short, two species whose ranges overlap have different periods of sexual activity or breeding season. Here are the example of temporal isolation. First, we have Rana aurora. Breeding season or breeding month are January to March, but the Rana boily breeds late March to May. For the last part of prezygotic isolation, we have behavioral isolation. Behavioral isolation is reproductive isolation based on the behavior of species in the context of mating, rituals, and signals. Here's the example of behavioral isolation. First, we have the blue-footed booby or Sula nevoxi. Performs an elaborate courtship dance while the booby o babi ba to? Ursula dactylatra performs a different courtship or ritual. So they have different rituals, so they don't mate to each other or interbreed. So now let's talk about post-zygotic isolation. Post-zygotic isolation occurs after the member of two different species or relative species have mated and produced zygote, and it have three parts. First, we have hybrid inviability. Second, we have hybrid sterility. And for the last one is hybrid breakdown. But we only discussed the two topics, which are hybrid inviability and hybrid sterility. So now let's talk about hybrid inviability. Hybrid inviability is a hybrid individual developed but either die before birth, or if born alive it cannot survive maturity. And here the example of hybrid inviability. If the sheep and goat mate, then hybrid zygote die before birth. Because sheep and goat have different chromosomes. Sheep have 54 and goats have 60. Next is hybrid sterility. Different species breed and produce offspring which does survive to become an adult. However, the adult suffer from very low fertility, thereby incapable of giving birth to offspring. The picture is donkey, the combination of zebra and donkey. This animal is an example of hybrid sterility. Now, let's talk about mode of speciation. First, we have allopatric speciation and second, sympatric speciation. What is allopatric speciation? Allopatric speciation is the type of speciation when a group of individuals diverge from their original species due to a geographical barrier. Second is sympatric speciation. Sympatric speciation occurs when there are no physical barriers preventing any members of a species from mating with another, and all members are in close proximity to one another.